All right. Philip here from Toon Tactics TV, giving you the third and final episode of Newcastle's season review so far. And here we're going to look at my predictions for the next period of games between the 25th of November to the 13th of January. So, how many points are we likely to accumulate in the Premier League? Are we staying in the cup competitions? And how do I come to those conclusions? By looking at the state of the squad, the transfers that I hope we're going to make, and our next period of games. So please stick around, share your comments, like and subscribe, and let's go. So what is the state of Newcastle squad? We're going to assess this by looking at my predicted lineups for the Chelsea game. So as you can see, this is the team I think that is likely to play. And this is the bench that we have. And as you can see, there's lots of gaps there. Those gaps are likely to be filled by our youth. And this was the case when we played Bournemouth in our previous game. These were the players that we had available, barring Isak. And the other positions were filled by our youth. As you are all aware, we lead the table for injuries, a number of injuries. At one point, we had 13 players out. Right now, in the latest report, we have about 9 players that are out, with a couple back, hopefully, for this next period. Obviously, Lewis Hall is likely to be back against PSG. He can't play against his parent club, Chelsea, so he'll be back against PSG. Botman, Barnes and Wilson are due to return between early to mid-December. Target and Anderson will hopefully return in late December. And Damber and Jacob Murphy will be fighting to get back into this period of football. And it's looking like January for them. And obviously, Tonali isn't back for the foreseeable future. So Eddie Howe's squad rotation skills are going to be pushed to the limit, but he has an excellent ability in that department. So I'm positive in that regard. So speaking of our squad rotation, let's look at our next period of games and how is Howe likely to navigate this. Alright, so for this next period of games, I think Newcastle will see a real mix of results. I think if we look at our last 2 games against Arsenal, where we won 1-0 at St. James's, and then we lost 2-0 against Bournemouth. I think this is what happens. These are the outcomes that you get when your squad is stretched thin. There are injuries and suspensions. So I think this is the likely outcomes we're going to see in this next period of games. Having said that though, coming back from international break with the squad, although thin, rested, I think for the next 3 or 4 games, we will hopefully see more positive results. I think the tricky period will come between the 7th and 19th of December, where we play Chelsea in the League Cup quarter-final at Stamford Bridge, and we will have our final Champions League game against Milan at St. James's Park, which I think will be a defining game for them as well. And we have 3 or 4 Premier League games wedged in between that. Those will be some of our most season-defining games and season-defining moments in the season. So it'll be interesting to see what the outcome of that is. Regardless, Newcastle team and the Newcastle squad will need reinforcements. And speaking of reinforcements, in the next section, let's take a look at the transfer window, and I'll give you my predictions and my thoughts on what I think our owners will do and the likely moves they will make in that period. Alright, so transfers. Some fans are saying that the owners are going to go big. They're going to spend lots of money. They're going to buy 3 to 4 players in this winter transfer window. Other fans are a lot more reserved than that and think that is unlikely. So let's look at the last 2 winter transfer windows under this ownership to see what is likely to happen at this time, in this present time. And we know that the first transfer window under the owners was in the winter. And they did spend lots of money. They spent 100 million plus, and they bought 5 players in, which included Kieran Trippier and Bruno Gomes. But we all know the context of that. And the context was that Newcastle was staring down the barrel of relegation. And so this money that was spent was to be invested and to help rescue Newcastle from relegation, which it did. However, had Newcastle not been facing relegation, I believe that the owners wouldn't have spent that money. And I think the next transfer window in the winter actually showed that, where we bought Anthony Gordon for between 40 to 45 million, and we sold John Joe Shelvey. And we sold John Joe at a time where we actually needed another midfielder to come in, because if you remember, we were severely stretched in that midfield department. And what that shows to me is that there is an overall transfer strategy that the owners will follow. And yes, they will take into account what's happening on the pitch, but they will follow this transfer strategy, which is probably 3 to 4 windows ahead. And they will follow this strategy in order to build the squad that they want. So looking into this window that we're going into right now, I predict and I think that we're likely to bring in 2 players, one of them on loan and one of them on a permanent transfer that will probably cost between 30 to 60 million. My hope is that we will fill the defensive department, so a right centre back and a right back, and also the midfield department, someone who can play in the 6 and 8 role. There's been a lot of rumours that could be Calvin Phillips or Ruben Neves. Eddie Howe and Dan Ashworth have been quoted using these names, but I don't think so. I think the fact that Eddie Howe and Dan Ashworth have been quoted and the rumours are so public and this transfer has become so public that it makes it even less likely that they're going to happen. I think there's actually a sleight of hand there, and I think Newcastle are looking elsewhere. So that's my prediction for the transfer window. Do send in your comments and let us know what you think. All right, so what are my predictions for this next period of games? Well, we have 8 Premier League games, so that's 24 points to play for. We have 2 Champions League games, one against Milan, one against PSG, and we have the League Cup quarter final against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. So I do believe we can beat Chelsea and qualify for the semi-final in the League Cup. And I think we will get knocked out in the Champions League. My hope is that we get knocked out straight into the Europa League, and that would be positive in that regard. I do think out of the 24 points we have to play for in the Premier League, we can achieve between 10 to 12 points. So where the draws and the wins are, I have no idea. I'm not able to predict that at this moment in time. There's just too many variables. But to sum it all up, if we come out of this period of time still in the League Cup, still in Europe, and between 30 to 32 points in the Premier League, that would be a very positive outcome for Eddie Howe, for the Toon Army, and for the club. And that's my predictions. Let me know what's yours. Share your views, send in your comments, like and subscribe. And until then, guys, take care and God bless.